Back pain slowing you down? Sedentary lifestyles and office work keeping you from having an active and fitness gym routine? Well, you've come to the right place. I'm AB, and in this video, we're going to be talking about simple ways to help improve strength and mobility of your spine. The central joint of our entire anatomy, housing our central nervous system, function and strength of our spine is central, literally, to how the rest of our neuromuscular connectivity operates and functions. So in this video, we'll talk about simple and easy progressions for exercises that anyone's looking to use and incorporate into their routine to help improve the strength and mobility of their posterior chain. If you're watching this video while you're at the gym, you can use the timestamps below so that you can skip the ones you've already done. This first exercise that we're going to be talking about is the foam roller passive hyperextension. I'll explain why it's passive here in a moment. It's one of my favorite exercises to do when I've been sitting for too long, making content to do in the morning or before I go to bed to help loosen up my spine. I also love how it makes my posture look and feel when I'm standing or walking around, how much taller I look. You are going to need a foam roller for this. Make sure you have one dense enough to help support your weight. So with the foam roller behind you and laying on the ground, take a seat on the floor, lay back and position the foam roller to lay across your shoulder blade. So it's going to go from shoulder to shoulder, but at the bottom end of your shoulder blades. When you lay back on the foam roller, we want to cradle our hands behind our head and let our head relax into our hands like fruit in a basket. Make sure you keep your hips and your feet grounded on the floor. If you're already feeling pressure in this position where the foam roller is on your back and you're just trying to get comfortable with it, just take a few moments to breathe, long inhales down into your belly, long exhales out of your stomach. Feel what this position is going to feel like because it can get more intense as we start moving. Once you've gotten accustomed to laying on this foam roller and just feeling it along your back, take a big inhale and try to look at the wall behind you. In doing so, we're trying to increase the extension of our spine, which is why we call it a hyperextension. But don't go so far that you're not able to get a comfortable breath in and out as you go. Remember to inhale as you start and then exhale as you extend your spine back and lean back to look at the wall behind you. We want to think about making an arch or the letter C with our spine. You can also adjust the position of the foam roller, but keep in mind we don't want the roller to go too low on your spine and put severe pressure on that lumbar spine area. But we also don't want it to go up so high on your spine near your upper shoulder blades, traps, and your neck area, because then you won't get as much of a bend back because the shoulder blades limit that motion. Like I said, this is a great exercise that I love to do to help increase the posture that I have, to get me out of my chair, and to help reverse any of those activities that cause me to hunch forward, such as sitting at a desk, driving a car. And I recommend doing this at least once a day, a couple sets at a time, anywhere from 2 to 3 sets, 30 seconds to a minute. You can also count rep ranges such as 3 sets of 10, 12. This is not a loaded exercise, so this is one where you definitely want to do more repetitions as often as you can. The next variation of this exercise that we're going to be focusing on is going to involve a stability ball. It's ideal to have a stability ball that's small enough that you can wrap your body around and cradle your thighs around. That being said, if you don't have one and you have one that's a bit larger, that's okay. You'll notice that I have my feet up against the wall behind me. Having a wall behind you is great because if you notice that you need an extra point of contact to anchor yourself, it's nice to have that wall supporting you. So we'll start by positioning a stability ball under our stomach. Place the ball right on your belly button. With your knees on the ground, wrap the ball around with your thighs and place your hands behind your head, same way we were doing with the passive hyperextension with the foam roller. Now I want you to tuck your chin and wrap your spine forward around the ball, just following the curvature of the ball. Take a big inhale, inhale down into your stomach, big belly full of air, and then begin to exhale as you rise up and lift your chest as high as you can, keeping that head in line with that spine. We want to lead the exercise with our chest and our thoracic spine, or the middle part of our back, not with our head. As we exhale, we want to squeeze our abs, or squeeze our core. We want to keep our thighs pressed up against the ball, and we want to pull our elbows back behind us. So think of your elbows getting pulled to the wall behind you. Pause for a second or two, and then inhale as you lower yourself down one vertebrae at a time, making sure that as we wrap around the ball, we're giving ourselves time to feel each vertebrae and give ourselves time to load up for the next repetition. This is a more active approach where you're trying to lift yourself and work against gravity. The other variation with the foam roller is passive because you're falling with gravity. Moving on to the transverse plane, rotational movement is not something that I feel people practice often enough, and yet it's such an important way to be able to move and have motion in our daily life and in sports. So for this variation, you're going to need a resistance band if possible. If you don't have one, you can do this with your hand behind your head. So we're going to start with a quadruped position, and then we'll move on to a half kneeling before finishing off in a split stance position. But be warned, when you're in this quadruped or half kneeling position, you might get some ashy knees from your knees being on the floor. But while in this quadruped position, you want to have your knees and wrists directly below your hips and shoulders respectively. Band in your hand shouldn't cause tension before you pull on it, so it should be fairly loose, but not so much that you don't get enough of a pull as you're rotating. In the half kneeling position, we want to have our knees at 90 degrees and in alignment with the same sided hip. We also don't want to let our head hang off our neck, so we want to keep that head nice and in place with our neck and the rest of our spine. The split stance position is simply straightening the back leg from the half kneeling position. In the half kneeling position and in the split stance positions, we're always rotating to the side of our forward leg. Once you've got your position set, whether it's quadruped, half kneeling, or split stance, take a big inhale, air into your stomach, big broad chest, and exhale as you rotate to one side. As you're rotating, keep that arm straight. Keep those shoulders down and away from your ears. Keep your eyes on your hands as you rotate up and out. Doing so helps to isolate strength in that thoracic spine, which is the area we want to think about rotating with, not just with our arm and our head. We want to aim to try to get the hand that's elevated in the air above the shoulders and the opposite hand. Pause for a moment at the top, and then inhale, bring that hand down. So the key here is moving at a controlled pace, whether you're in a quadruped, half kneeling, or split stance. Once you've completed the number of reps on one side, move on to the next set to perform on the other side. This last exercise variation that we're going to talk about in this video is for lateral flexion and rotation of our spinal mobility. And for added fun, it helps improve shoulder stability because you're going to have a kettlebell. So you're going to start in a half kneeling position with your knees at 90 degrees before moving on to the standing variation. You can use any handheld weight, but in this video, I like to use a kettlebell. We're gonna have the kettlebell sit on the back side of our hand. Once you're in that half kneeling position, you wanna have that weight high and overhead. We're gonna have the weight correspond to the side of our forward leg. So if my right knee is forward, the weight is in my right hand. Now that we've got the weight overhead, we've got our half kneeling position set up, knees at 90 degrees, nice tall posture, head high. We want to inhale air into our stomach and bend our spine, trying to reach that hand or forearm into the floor as we reach down, keeping that weight overhead. If you're new to this, start by getting your hand to the floor or go as low as you can with the intent of bringing your forearm down to the floor. As you lower yourself down, you want to keep those eyes on the weight above you just for safety reasons, because if we can't see where the weight is, and we're not prepared for it in case we drop it or it swings one way, we can't react to keep our shoulders stable and stiff. Using all points of contact with the earth, generate tension and stiffness by keeping those feet and those knees grounded in the floor. We don't want to see any wobbling. It only makes the exercise harder, so use your core to brace and use your legs to reaffirm that stiffness. The most challenging portion of this exercise, even for myself, is limiting movement or shifting our weight at the hips. Once you've gotten to your lowest or touched the floor, exhale and rise back up to the starting position. So nice tall posture, coming back up. You'll notice that maybe you get stuck at certain points on one side or the other. Maybe you struggle with shoulder stability. At the end of the day, more practice is gonna make this a lot easier to do. Once you've mastered this in the half kneeling position, you can move on to the standing position. In the standing position, we're gonna have our feet pointed at either 10 or 2 o'clock. They do have to point in the same direction. Whichever direction they point in, that's gonna be the hand that goes to the floor, and the other hand is gonna be holding the weight overhead. From here, the same movement applies in the same breathing pattern as well. Inhale on the way down, exhale as you come back up. But as you inhale on the way down or as you're descending, use your lower hand to guide you by placing it on the inside of your same-sided thigh. The left hand inside of that left thigh to help guide you to the floor, and you know how far down you've gone. As you're descending, push your hips back to the wall behind you, but do so with control at a pace that you can handle. Pushing our hips back too fast or putting all of our weight on our heels puts us at risk of falling back. One cue I like to think of for my feet is think of grabbing the ground. These are exercises that I recommend for anyone to do at home. Even for the kettlebell windmill, if you don't have a kettlebell, just putting one hand overhead, helps to kind of reinforce that shoulder stabilization. If you have lightweight, even better. I hope you've enjoyed watching this video. At the end of the day, remember that sedentary lifestyles really limit our ability to have a good and consistent fitness routine. So try to get up out of your chair, practice these exercises as often as you can. Use them as your warm-ups when you go to the gym, just to kind of help those joints get loose and get going. And the more consistent you are with these exercises, the sooner you can see improvements, the sooner you can feel more mobile, the sooner you can feel strong and tall with your posture. Because at the end of the day, we all don't want to live with joint pain.